Hello, everybody. Welcome back to our guide series. Right now, we are doing the mid-game guide for Hearthstone Duos. I'm with my good friend Sapphire X, my teammate. How you doing?
I'm great. How are we doing, Collins?
We're doing fantastic. So this is part of our series on Metafy. We are working on a couple full encapsulating guide right now. We're at mid-game guide. You want to check out all of them together, and you can find it at metafy.gg at Educatedcollins. So here we have our table of contents. What is mid-game and moving on if you want to follow along and pick up where it makes sense to you.
Yep. And just to reiterate here, this is assuming that you have followed our early game guide to this point. We're not just dropping you in, turn 6 or whatever in a random game. This is assuming you've actually followed up to the point to where our early game guide has ended, and now we're starting the mid game. So, what is the mid game? We are classifying the mid game as turns 6 through 8. So that's going to be from the turn that you pick your trinket all the way up until just before you pick your greater trinket in most games. During these turns is where you're going to transition away from that early game tempo that you've picked up and move towards a late game direction. So you're wanting to sell your board of the unnecessary units that you have and using your gold to find those key units, those key triples that can then find those key units so that you can actually find a direction.
Yeah. Mid game in particular is probably one of the hardest parts of the games to get right because it's where you have to do a lot of like unusual things like selling your board or rolling it and figuring out exactly what you need. You also need to have a good idea of what compositions you want to play. So if you're not doing a lot of these things during the mid game, that's where people can struggle, and people generally say like this is the hardest part of the game for them. So hopefully this can help you out.
Yeah.
Most important goal I would say during the mid game is just finding direction for not just you, but you and your teammate. Sometimes it can work that you are only you is enough, but most of the times both of players need to be having something to do. And the best way to have direction is to just have a clear picture of what you want to play. So if you go into the game saying, "Oh, I want to lean into these comps," not saying I'm going to force and roll it down, but if I'm leading into like mechs, for example, once you see those mech pieces, it's very easy for you to be like, okay, these are the pieces I want. Let's commit, versus like if you're wishing and hoping, and then you find a piece, you don't know if you want to do it, you find another piece of different direction, you don't know if you want to do it, and you have both of them together, you're not really clear, you're not really scaling either of them. That's really how you struggle. But if you have a clear idea of like, okay, if I get this piece, I'm going to commit, that's usually a very powerful strategy.
Yeah, and like also because we tend to have one person on 4 and one person on 3 by the end of turn 5.
Mm-hmm.
Generally speaking, I would say a good amount of the time, at least, like one person, which is the person who's leveling,
Mm-hmm.
is generally finding both directions. Like they're finding a direction for themselves and they're finding a direction for their teammate. That's part of the feeding process and leveling process. Is when you're the one on higher tier, you're usually responsible for finding both directions.
We'll get to that for sure. Um, just as well with direction, just be ready to adjust in game.
Yeah. So it is nice to know what you want to play in the optimal scenario. Whenever a game starts, you can look at the minions and see what you want to play. But you can't just roll it down for those pieces while you're taking a bunch of damage and getting to low health. So you do have to be aware of the other things in the game that you can play that may not be as optimal or what you want to do, but can still give you the ability to scale, stabilize, and have a chance at winning the game later on.
Yeah, some like this really is saying like sometimes in the mid game you really want this particular comp, right? And you're maybe low health. We see a lot of players just spending all their gold, rolling, hoping they hit the piece, and then if they don't hit the piece, they lose, right? Because they spent their 10 gold doing nothing. They didn't get stronger. Everyone else got stronger, then they die, right? So these are not the times where spending your gold fully rolling is usually worth it. Usually it's when you have your compositions, you're looking for that one key supporting piece, maybe a Dracarys or something like that. That's really will make your comp a lot stronger versus like rolling it down to get that first initial piece. You want to look at what you have in your shop, look at your options, see what you can do from those options, and then over time in different scenarios, then you can spend your time rolling.
Yeah, and I think a general rule of thumb is like you pretty much just don't roll in the early mid game. Like
Yeah.
you just buy minions. Like once your board is full, then you can start like actually using rolls. But
Mm-hmm.
until then, like it's better to have minions on board, which then turn into gold later and tempo now, than to have 3 minions on board and roll 5 times to try to find 1 minion. It just isn't good.
Now, milking is like a unique aspect of the mid game where you can get some tier 3s, tier 4 minions that give you extra value while you have them on board. They're not really part of your main or your late game composition, but they give you so much value that it's really nice to pick them up when you can and then have them linger on your board until you really need to take them out or transition them into a more late game scaling focused composition. So there's a couple that you can get away with for a couple of turns.
Yeah, and the general idea of the milk is the earlier you get it, the better it is, right? So the
Yeah.
earlier you get a crewmate or a plunder pile, the better it is. Generally, if you're taking a 4-drop, we're taking that tripling into a 4-drop, I should say. We're
Mhm.
taking that on either turn 4 or turn 5. Usually, turn 4 is where we would aim to take a 4-drop. Sometimes even turn
Turn
3
three,
if
yeah.
we 3-on-3 and pass a triple, but that
Mhm.
doesn't like you can't always line that up. Um, but if you can get on turn 4, say the tier 4 undead, then on turn 5 you can spend your turn getting the actual milk cards that summon a bunch of minions and can protect it and stuff. Then you have several turns of early economy to be able to play with.
Mhm. So here are some examples of some of the early milking minions. We have the 2 pirates already here, but here are some of the ones on tier 4. Shifty Snake, Rylak, Ticketer, Rover, Greenskeeper. I would say like the ones at the top are a little they're like standard. They're not super impressive.
Yeah.
They can give you like a gold or two depending on the situation. Sometimes you could get lucky and they're a little bit more valuable than that, but they're not really like game changing, game warping in a lot of the games unless you have those right scenarios.
Yeah, and then the bottom 3 are going to be the premium milk cards that you're looking for. Obviously, they're all on 4, so the earlier you get them, the better. But Feisty Freshwater, every time it dies, or even triggers for that matter, because you can trigger it with like Macaw and stuff too, you get 4 extra gold for your team essentially, because you get 2 free rolls, your teammate gets 2 free rolls, and you don't even have to spend them. They do get banked. So if you just level the following turn, then assuming it dies the next combat, you have 4 free rolls banked instead of 2. Like it's just super good value. Chef, especially if you can find Zesty,
Mm-hmm.
like it's guaranteed gold a turn, a guaranteed minion of the tribe that you want to turn.
Mm-hmm.
But if you can find Zesties and stuff like that, you can really print money. Like, and then Grave Narrator, I think would probably be the premium one that most people think about when they think about milk that's still left in the game. That one you can generally get at least 2, sometimes 3 or 4 minions for your teammate of the tribe that you want them to be in. One thing to note though, if you are the ones that are playing the Grave Narrator or the Private Chef, for example, it's generally better to have those on the person who's leveling, because the random minions that you generate off of these are based on your tavern tier. So if you're on 5 and your teammate's on 3, you can get them tier 5 minions randomly sent, as opposed to if it were the other way around, they'd be capped out at only sending you tier 3 minions or below.
Yeah, it's very useful, very important, and the ability to give specific minion types should not be undervalued. Like that is a very core component of these minions. Where if you know your team has a Grave Nader, you really want to fish for the Quillbores if you're looking for Quillbores or Beasts or whatever type that you really want to play. You really want to make sure that you might even sell a minion to have that
Yeah,
type
to make
guaranteed.
sure that's your tribe.
Yeah, so it's quite important. Uh, Next up is focusing on scaling. So this is just something we see a lot, kind of like a little hope, like something to focus on. A lot of players get stuck in their early tempo lines, and they usually don't transition to mid or late game well because they're stuck or they're focused on whatever they're doing in the early game. So there's a couple units. There's a lot of units, but any unit that scales early but isn't part of a main composition unless you have like a random key piece is usually good early tempo but bait for the late game. So it's just very important during those mid games that you're able to rip the band-aid off. This is something I say a lot anytime there's like a very uh, cool minion that you want to keep, but isn't worth or isn't good for your comp. Just rip the band-aid off, sell the minion, and it'll be better for you in the long run.
Yeah, we have like the Bird Buddy, the Gold Grubber. Those are some like very strong turn 4, turn 5 minions that can really carry you tempo wise for a few turns. I'd say probably Passenger would also fit into that category as another one just off the top of the head.
Yeah.
But you have to be able to get out of those cards. Like whenever we queue into someone who has a Bird Buddy on their board on turn 4 or 5, it's like, great. Okay, I guess we're taking 10 damage. But if we queue into them again on turn 8 and they still have a Bird Buddy on their board, I'm like, oh, cool. They're taking 15
Yeah.
because it just doesn't scale. And obviously, if you have Shimmer Moth, that changes things, right? But like just a standard Bird Buddy comp or standard Gold Cobra comps, like they don't scale well past like the mid game. So you really need to get out of them as early as you can get into an actual scaling composition.
Yeah. A lot of these bait minions are fairly selfish in terms of like they don't buff your whole team, but they buff themselves. So even though they're getting strong, the rest of your support pieces are not. So because of that, it's a little lacking.
And then you have Bird Buddy, which is non-permanent scaling.
Yeah.
So you basically, when you're playing Bird Buddy comp, you have the exact same power on turn 5 as you have on turn 8 because you're not scaling whatsoever. It's just in combat non-permanent scaling. So like you have to think about it like that, where it's great on turn 5, it's great on turn 6, it's decent on turn 7. By the time you get to turn 8, turn 9, like you have the exact same board that you had 4 turns ago. Like that's a bad situation to be in. So as we mentioned before in the first video, by the time you get to turn 6, so before you actually pick your trinket, one person is on tier 4, one person is on tier 3.
Mm-hmm.
So from that point, the person who's on tier 4, their job is to find good tempo or value oriented cards. So that's going to be like a Foodie, for example, when Quillboar's in. You can find the Sandlane Scribe. You can find there's a number of the pirates on tier 4. You can find Grifta. You can find the name escapes me, but the one that gives you 1 extra gold plus 1 extra gold for each golden minion, like just for that. You can find any of those types of cards. There's some Rylax stuff you can play as well, and then obviously look for triples into 5-drops.
Yeah. Yeah, a person on tier 3 can pick fine explosive trinkets. So generally, since it's tier 6, you're going to have the trinket options. So if you're on tier 4, it's very easy to pick one and have enough gold to look for things, roll, buy some cards. Tier 3, it's a little bit different. Either you have a really good trinket that's fairly expensive and you have to pick it up, and if you do, then you don't have the money to level, so you have to stay down and finish your board that way. But if you get a cheap or a leveling trinket, something that's 0 cost or something that gives you gold, then that gives you the resources to just level to 4, and from there either roll on 4 or picks things up on 4, or just maybe you just had enough gold to level and that's it. But generally, if you can go to 4 without picking a bad trinket, it's probably worth it. But if you do have to pick a good trinket, then just stay 3, and it's fine that way as well.
Yeah, and one thing to note for the person who's specifically on tier 3, if you have multiple good trinket options, say you have, Portal in a Bottle, Goblin Wallet, and what's the name of the one that replicates a minion on your board every
Reflecting
turn?
Pendant.
Yeah, Reflecting Pendant. Say like you have those 3 options, all 3 are great options. It's better to wait to choose your trinket until your teammate who's already on 4 can finish their turn. Because, for example, if the person who's on 4 is able to triple into a 5-drop that turn and finds, like, say, a Foodie or sorry, not Foodie, a Pokey or, one of the premium 5-drops that you really want for your scaling comp, you can then take reflective, sell off your board, and now all of a sudden you're printing these like premium 5 drops, right? But if they don't, maybe you'd rather have Goblin Wallet and Level if they end up being strong,
Or
so that
maybe
you can both be on 4 and have money.
or maybe there's a triple potential with the copy one, and then you might want to pick that one, buy the pair, get the triple,
Yeah.
send it to your teammates. So it really does depend if you have good trinkets. So that's a good point.
Yeah, so it is very important for you, like on the trinket turns, to not just like snap, take your trinket, and start playing your turn without your teammate. Like it's you need to coordinize. Sometimes you have synergies, right? Like sometimes you both have portal trinket, and it's a cold war lobby or whatever, so you can like a foodie over and over again and just have huge gym scaling. Like you need to make sure that you're waiting, seeing what your opponent or sorry, seeing what your teammate's doing, and then playing accordingly from that.
Yeah, it's quite a good advice. Yeah. Thank you for checking out the sneak peek of our mid-game guide. If you want to check out the full guide and to support the series, check it out on metafy.gg/@educatedcollins. It's really helpful. These take a lot of time to make and to put together. So anytime you can support, we'll be having new ones coming out every week. So check it out and hope you guys enjoy the sneak peek. Take care and have a wonderful day. And hope your teammates better than ours. Yeah, I remember.